Okay, she be going every single night. Day and night on my mind, pushing cute vibe.
How's it going, everybody? This is Tyler Driver. Hope you're having another great day, and welcome back to another video. Alright folks, it's time for another edition of Bad Game Reviews, where in this series, I talk about all the games that I have in my collection, whether it's the PlayStations 1, 2, 3, or 4, that I find to be just extremely bad. And today, the game that unfortunately ends up on my hit list is called Rascal. Folks, I played a lot of bad games before in my life, but I gotta be telling you right now, this is probably up there as one of the very worst that I have ever played, and I will explain to you why in just a little bit. Before I get any further, the first things first is that this game was first developed by Traveler's Tale, you know, that company that was responsible for developing the PS1 games for A Bug's Life, Toy Story 2 back in the late 90s when they were working with Disney. Well, they developed this game and it was released by Psygnosis back in March of 1998 for the PlayStation 1. So the story goes is that you play as a character named Rascal, and that you are the son of a scientist who is actually working on what would be the world's first time machine, and he's actually currently working on the very last finishing touches on it before getting it into use. However, problems then end up taking this thing completely awry. What happens is that while Rascal comes down to check on his father to see what he's doing, it entirely ends up coming into the game and it completely messes everything up, and then at the same time that ensues, two aliens come out of the time machine and end up dragging his father right into the time machine, and the only thing that's left behind is his laser gun. So Rascal uses his father's laser gun to go on a really mysterious adventure to try to save his father and ultimately save the world before all of it goes completely into mass destruction. Along the way, he goes through a lot of very different destinations where he faces these very ferocious characters and even has to face the evil overlord to try to save the world as well and hopefully bring everything back to normal. But let me tell you, it takes a lot longer than you think to be able to do all that. As I said before, I played a lot of very bad games, especially the three that I have already reviewed here for the PlayStation 1, but this one is probably up there as one of the very worst games ever made, not just for the PlayStation 1, but perhaps one of the worst games ever. I've seen quite a bit of reviews explaining why, and let me tell you something, I cannot disagree with them one bit. This is a very bad game, and one of the very first reasons why, and probably the most important reason why, is the gameplay. It's just very, very hard to even play this game whatsoever, you know? The controls in this game are just absolutely bad, you know? You try to move one way, but unfortunately then it ends up glitching and ends up going in another way, and that really is just a problem on its own. You know, you're not able to control your character very well, especially with the way the camera is set up, and I'll talk a little bit more about the camera in just a little bit. Not only that, there's just a lot of things that I just find extraneously wrong, you know. You end up going underwater, you know, just to swim around it, but whenever you step on water, you end up losing parts of your life, unfortunately, and I just find that to be completely bizarre. Not only that, the only weapon you have with you is that laser gun, and it does very little damage, unfortunately, to the characters that you're trying to defeat. And it just makes it a lot harder to be able to complete a mission. Plus, you just have no idea exactly what the heck you're even doing whatsoever. It just gives you a complete lack of direction, unfortunately. And, you know, just the way that you play this game, unfortunately, it just makes it feel like this game is just almost next to impossible to play. It's just very hard to be able to control the game when you have all these technical glitches and all these bugs in there, as well as these hard controls that makes it hard for you to be able to play Rascal and just, you know, get through the entire game. And the reason why I say this is because I played this for a few months now, I still have not been able to get past the first level of this game. And trust me, that's all you need to know exactly why this is an extremely bad game. The gameplay and just the controls all together, it just combines together to create what possibly could be one of the worst games that I think was ever made. I'm gonna be honest with you, it looks like that it was just put together at the last minute. Either that, or development spent just 3 or 4 years working on this game just to complete absolutely nothing. I mean, really? This is the end product that you come up with? I mean, come on. This is just absolutely trash. Now, going back to the camera, unfortunately, it is probably one of the worst that I have ever seen in a video game. Now, I play games where the cameras are a little bit difficult to control, like, for example, Croc Legend of Gobbos, which is still probably one of my favorite PlayStation 1 games, yet I've still been able to handle that a little bit well. The same thing goes with Spyro the Dragon 2. This game, though, the camera ends up taking you on a complete level that makes it hard for you to be able to even play this game. When you move something, it's just completely completely hard to be able to control. I mean, there's no way to be able to get into a situation where you're able to follow a character the entire length of the time. And not only that, whenever you're going that far, the camera doesn't even follow you. It ends up just staying stuck right there. And whenever you are moving around, it ends up in a completely different direction than where it should be. It's just hard to be able to play a game in which the camera is acting like that. I don't know who was in charge with the production of this game, but those that are making a PlayStation 1 game at a time should know that whenever you're making a video game like this, the camera angle should be a lot better. You gotta be able to at least follow somebody whenever you're playing something like a third-person shooter, a first-person shooter, or an action-adventure game like that. And so the camera to go along with everything else, they need to be absolutely perfect. This right here came nowhere close to that. And that's a shame because, Croc and Spyro the Dragon, like I said, your cameras were a little bit hard to control, but once you get used to them, you're able to figure it out. Here, it's just very, very hard. It feels like the camera is set up to force you to lose the game, unfortunately. And sometimes, whenever the camera moves around at an angle, I end up just falling right into the lava or water and just end up dying, unfortunately. So that makes it a whole lot harder to be able to play this game. And I really wish they had been able to figure out the camera angles a whole lot better because it is just wrong. The graphics for this game aren't that much better. I mean, look, you gotta give it at least some credit for trying. I mean, this at least matches the 3D description of 3D graphics that you would expect for a PS1 game at the time, but at the same time though, it just looks completely bland. I mean, it really feels like you're staring at a blank wall almost. The colors there is just extremely bland, and a lot of the things that you see in the graphics were completely out of place at times. I mean, it feels like though that graphics just don't feel like that I'm playing an actual video game. In fact, it really feels like I'm more playing a claymation, unfortunately, or maybe just watching a TV show or movie or something like that, but it really did not feel like that I was playing an actual game. Now, for granted, this game was actually in 1998, not unlike all the games that I've reviewed already that were from 2002, but still, when you're making a PS1 game for 1998, you gotta match it just like all the other games out there, and unfortunately, it just looks like, while it is alright, it's just extremely bland, and unfortunately, the graphics could have been a whole lot better. The story, I just feel like it's just completely boring. I mean, there's really just no cutscenes that take place in the middle of it, and not only that, the graphics, like, it just looks completely wrong. I mean, like I said before, the graphics, the cutscenes in itself, it looks like they were out of a comic book, but not a very good one, unfortunately, and it feels like it looks just completely bland as a result of that, and like I said before, the rest of the story, it just isn't that much better. I mean, there's really just no stopping point, and not only that, you have to repeat a lot of the levels over and over and over again just to be able to complete the entire game. I mean, there are only like 5 or 6 levels in the entire game, but you have to complete them like multiple times and get everything out of there just for you to be able to even beat the game. And sometimes that can take a lot longer for you to be able to beat this game. You should not be going back in and repeating several levels in a story mode just to be able to complete the game. You should only be able to do it once. And not only that, the save points are also very hard to find as well. Very rarely are you able to find a save point in the game, and whenever you do try to save it, there's like a bug that prevents you from being able to save the game as well. And not only that, there are very few rare instances in which you can be able to get an extra life, so you really gotta have to do what you can. That's just unfair because, the story mode, I understand while it's a good effort, you just jump right into it without getting some sort of other direction to be able to know what you're doing. And unfortunately, the rest of the story just isn't that much better, and it just feels like that it doesn't make a real good plot for a video game, and unfortunately that's just another one of the major issues that makes this game extremely bad. And finally, one of the worst things about this game altogether is that there was actually some executive meddling that took place in this game. I actually read a Crappy Games article on Wiki about this game, and it actually said that there was quite a bit of meddling that took place with the executives when it comes to this game. So like the developers, they tried their best to be able to make a good game, but the executives said, nah, we want to see them do this. No, we want this to happen, and no, we want something like this to happen. And as a result, it just completely messed up the entire development process of this game. And as a result, it would make this game a whole lot worse than it should be. I'm going to be honest with you, I don't know exactly how much better this game would have been if the executives had just let the developers play this game out, but I would tell you right now, I mean, executives, they should just be staying out of this game. The developers should be the one that are in charge of being able to make a game like this, and unfortunately, once something like this happens, it just throws the entire thing off. I actually read that one of the things that they did did in this meddling process is that they actually tried to make the controls a little bit easier on the cameras. However, the executives said that they want to do this or something like that. Whatever they suggested, it really made the game a whole lot harder and probably next to impossible to complete as a result. And that's just extremely wrong. The executives should be letting the developers and those that are making the game make it the way that the players want them to make it. Either way though, it's one of those rare instances where executives have been caught making a game a lot worse than it should be. And again, I don't know how much better this would have been, but it still is a bad look for not just Psygnosis, but also Traveler's Tale. In fact, that they're trying to create this game and something like this is happening. It just throws the entire development process completely off. Folks, I played a lot of third-person shooters along with a lot of action-adventure games, and I've done all my best to be able to review each one of them while I'm playing them to see exactly how good they are. And I've read quite a number of reviews about Rascal himself and saying, do not pick up this game. This is an extremely bad game, and I wanted to see what they were talking about. I decided to pick this up because I wanted to see if they were right, see exactly what they were talking about that they thought made this game completely bad, and maybe see if I can defy that, maybe try to defeat those expectations, and maybe even try to beat this game at a quick amount of time. Folks, I'm going to be telling you right now, those people that reviewed this game, they were not lying. There are a lot of very, very bad games out there for the PlayStation 1, despite the fact that it was the very first true Godfather console in the video gaming era, for at least the modern era. And unfortunately, this has got to be up there as one of the absolute worst. When you see everything in regards to this game, no matter if it's the graphics, the development process of it, and just the overall gameplay that comes out of it, I gotta tell you, this is a game that you should definitely not get right now. Like I said before, I still have not gotten past the first level of this game, all because of just how bad it is. And unfortunately, I feel like this just really hammered the mood down there at Psygnosis and Traveler's Tale. I mean, you gotta face it, Psygnosis were the people that were responsible for Destruction Derby, and those were some really good games. So unfortunately, they lost a lot of credibility and a lot of love as a result of this. And Traveler's Tale, absolutely, they were able to recover from this and make some good other games, like I said before, A Bug's Life and Toy Story 2 and a few other games. But man, this was just a very bad look for both of those companies. This was just an extremely bad game all the way around. If I were you, I would suggest skipping this game. Do not even bother picking this up, because chances are you're going to have a very hard time playing this game, and unfortunately it's just going to have a very bad look. You're not going to be able to get very far, and even if you do make it all the way to the end, it's just not going to be very satisfying overall. Rascal is just something that you would not want to go through for several hours, or maybe even a couple days if it takes that long for you to be able to beat this. There are a lot of very bad games that were made for the PlayStation 1, and let me tell you something, Rascal was by far one of the very worst that's ever been made for the PlayStation 1, and that's exactly why I think that after all this, this is the reason why it is an extremely bad game. That's going to do it for this review. Like I said before, this is just one of many that I have in my collection, so if you want to see more game reviews like this, feel free to let me know down in the comments. What other games do you like for me to review, whether it's for the PlayStation 1, 2, 3, or 4, if it's a bad game, or maybe even a good game. What kind of game you would like for me to review? Please let me know down in the comments, and I'll definitely try my best to look at that and do a review on it very soon. Anyways, that's going to do it for another video. I hope you all enjoyed it. As always, if you'd like to see more of my content, I have new videos uploaded every Wednesday at 6 p.m. and on Saturdays at noon, so make sure that you subscribe and hit the notification bell so you know when my latest video is released. Comment below for future suggestions for all my videos, whether it's vlogs, projects, challenges, or video game content like this one, you name it, leave it in the comments below and I'll do my best to make them. And as always, follow me in my social media, all the links are in the description below. That's going to do it for another video. I hope you all having another great day, and as always, I hope to see all of you again in another video very soon. And as I said before, whatever you do, gamers, do not pick this game up. So long, everybody.